Well, ladies and Germans, how you all doing? It's Con. I'll work with another 1v1 in Company of Heroes 2, obviously. So down here, actually in Crossing the Woods, we're going to be seeing the cowardly colored OKW and the forces of Unknown Legend. He is bringing on in Luftwaffe ground forces, fortifications, and Feuersturm Doctrine. Up on the northern side, though, his United States enemy, it's going to be VonIvan bringing on in tactical support, Assault Armored Company, and Recon Support Company. Now that's fascinating. I haven't seen Recon Support Company in a very, very long time. Wow. Actually, IR Pathfinders could be a lot of fun to see, but I don't really think we're going to see that particular commander out here, if you know what I mean. Unknown Legend starting on off with a double Kubelwagen opening, so that's going to be kind of interesting, and a little bit kind of strange, all things considered. Especially against the riflemen of VonIvan. It's going to be kind of a difficult sell. At least that's my somewhat colored assessment there. Now, before this game really kind of gets kicked off, I am looking to develop some more material for you guys, including, but maybe not limited to, kind of podcast opportunity, looking at kind of historical events. If you guys think that might be an interesting idea, let me know in the comments below. I'd be kind of fascinated to do it, and frankly, there's a lot of information out there I think you guys definitely could be very interested to learn, whether it's about World War II or otherwise. But here we go. We're going to get kicked on off with the action. Kubelwagen's going to find out this rear echelon squad, even as riflemen move over to the left-hand side to engage this second Kubelwagen. The problem with that is that as soon as the Sturm Pioneers are done capping, they come on over and they will do like righteous amounts of damage over here to the riflemen. Even more so to these rear echelons, jeez. So the question really is, how much does VonIvan want to sacrifice in terms of army economy? And indeed, he just sacrifices 2 models for not that much, and indeed just kind of has to a little bit of health damage, and that's really it. So fascinating, well done there. And no, it is going to be a Recon Support Company, so let's take a quick look at this now. So, forward observers, so riflemen squads can see further in cover of garrisons, IR Pathfinders, which call in artillery barrages, M8s, Recon, and paratroopers with an AT gun. That's pretty cool. Like, honestly, I can't think of the last time I even cast a game that had Recon Support. So I'm actually kind of hoping that's going to go particularly well. I'm trying to think about how that would match up against the OKW, depending on what gets picked, of course, by Unknown Legend. That could color things rather significantly. Case in point, if you go for like Luftwaffe ground forces, not that he will, but he can make, you know, flak emplacements all over the place. And that at that point, anything up in the air will be a giant, giant liability. And he, in fact, is going to go for Luftwaffe ground forces, so this will be fascinating. Fallschirmjägers will trade decently well against the Pathfinders. Just the Pathfinders have that artillery barrage. And frankly, the closer the Fallschirmjägers get, the worse it will get for the Americans. The Germans do have themselves this technically connected. Yes, it is. So there's a connected fuel point for the Germans, and the US is not quite there yet. So we will see blob play coming on out from VonIvan. He's got 3 squads of rear echelons. That's really, really strange. These Kubelwagens are getting forced back like crazy. Volksgrenadiers coming on in to finally support them. But these guys will be outnumbered quite significantly, and this Kubelwagen might even go down here. But they do egregious amounts of damage, I would say. The question is, can they stay up? I think they can still stay up for just a little bit longer. Rear echelon squad's getting forced back. Riflemen are getting forced back. The only one left is this one rear echelon squad. And they're going to regret being there. In the meantime, Riflemen will force back the 3rd rear echelon squad. Now everything American is falling back to base. Out of that, I don't exactly agree with that strategy there. What? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 models being dropped in that mad assault. That's going to keep VonIvan on his back foot for quite a bit of time and give Unknown Legend a significant amount of time to control resource points around the map. It is true the US does have this middle VP. But at the end of the day, I still have to give a hefty, hefty advantage to the boys in yellow. What's more, with his particular decision right now to bring in an SWS, I'm wondering, will it be a battle group headquarters? I almost would like to see that, but a double Kubelwagen suggests, and yep, there it is, it's a mechanized regiment coming on in for Unknown Legend. That'll actually get more and more valuable as if he's able, remotely, to pick up the strategic point and connect through. But that's not going to happen either now, is it? Instead, we're going to see a Rifleman Combat Group, is what I'm going to call it here. As the 2 riflemen on the map and the rear echelon squad try to shift on over to keep these Germans at bay. Now, interestingly, we saw an ammo before 4.5 minutes, and looking at the way that his army was just completely cut to pieces, I can kind of understand that. In the meantime, Kubelwagens will have a rear echelon squad caught out, and they're just doing great work against them, taking them down to 50%.
while
the Volksgrenadiers on the eastern flank are pushed back. And that still has allowed the Germans to get a trip cap for a few long seconds. So the Americans have to really watch out with this one. Adding in now, Riflemen are really, really great when they, especially when they outnumber 2-1. They're successful, kind of outnumbering opponents. But the Germans are massing their troops rather effectively here. MT-34 coming out as well will do very well against the blob play suggested by VonIvan. And I have to be more than a little bit concerned that this double Kubelwagen opening is very unconventional, but working rather well. Pathfinders, in the meantime, they're coming on in. Let's take a quick look at the abilities that they have. So, set up Beacon, which allows guys to paradrop reinforce and set up rather effectively when they get called into the field for paratroopers, as well as Arty Barrage, so a quick 155 at 140 per, and decoys. So, that could encourage some very, very rapid redeployments by Unknown Legend. But, you know, kind of hard to be too negative considering the position Unknown Legend has himself in. Worth noting in the meantime that the Americans do have their fuel point for right now, and they're taking one of these VPs over to the western side. But now there's MT-34 coming on up, which means though the Germans might drop control of their fuel point, they will very, very quickly devastate any kind of push made in the meantime. Rear echelons are coming back out after they've lost this fuel point. Unfortunately, I don't think they were going to be able to cap this out effectively under fire. And I continue to feel that way as we continue to see this MT-34 now put oodles and oodles of damage out on these rear echelon troops. Now, Fallschirmjägers are ready for deployment, as you can see right there, and these Volksgrenadiers desperately need help. But adding in now, we are going to see Fallschirmjägers coming on out. Perfect timing, and being able to come in and reinforce their kind of shocked brethren. Now, an M8 Greyhound coming in. So this is a very, very strange game. Very strange. So the M8 has itself a light cannon here, you can see. Now, I don't know if that might be a 20 mil type cannon, or like a 6-pounder, but I might be wrong. So, Williams, if you know that, get on that for me, alright? But now it's the Germans' turn to be thrown back into disarray, and this Kubelwagen's going to go down. Poor guy. Sturm Pioneers backing up very, very quickly. And I'm wondering, will we see a Panzer II, or is this a way just to leapfrog over into having some great armor in the mid-game for the Germans? Now, for me, I'd like to see that Panzer II. I think the Panzer II matching off as the Greyhound would be rather fascinating. I don't get to see that very often, ever. This right here, oh my gosh, oh, the canister shot. Alright, so that is going to hurt a hell of a lot if the Germans aren't able to get out of range on that one. So that's the canister shot that you saw from like, the Stuart way back when. Luckily for this bad boy, he's able to reverse like crazy, crazy fast. And there's a Puma, in fact, so that's an interesting call. Now, all the Germans in the world are coming on up, but the Kubelwagen still goes down, so 2 kills over to VonIvan's Greyhound. Well done there. But I don't think that will be, in and of itself, a massive blow for democracy. What's more, now with the Puma coming on in, VonIvan has to be very, very careful about his aggression. Not that he knows that's coming in, but that'll be very aware for him soon enough. And there is actually armor-piercing ammo being popped, so that's an interesting call right there. But the Puma's in, and the Americans are seizing territory all across the field. 4 different points being going on down right now. Worth noting, I guess, that the IR Pathfinders, infiltration and reconnaissance Pathfinders, will have a very difficult time setting up in kind of consistent heavy combat. But, you know, all things considered, it's kind of hard to really be too rough against them because they are not supposed to really be your frontline infantry right now, are they? Americans, in the meantime, they're seizing garrison all along the eastern flank here. They're getting well across the 50-yard line. And because they're taking a very hefty resource advantage. But I don't expect that to last particularly long. Greyhound took a nice little slam right there. And a second Greyhound coming on in. So I'm guessing VonIvan has tested this a little bit because maybe he's going for 2 very quick Greyhounds, not going for any sort of officer, which is stunning to me. Huh. This is very bizarre. I'm not used to seeing this.
A capture point is under attack.
But a 2-to-1 advantage right now in caps. He's still down about 100 tickets. And this Puma's not going to do a whole lot, especially if these guys start popping off with those anti-tank rifle grenades. And they're getting closer and closer to do it. The question is whether or not... There we go. Volkswagen is going to push him back. Alright. And with the assistance of these Fallschirmjägers, whatever they may be, another squad coming on out from this garrison, picking up this fuel point, and that is the danger of utilizing... Not utilizing. Of being on a map with so many different opportunities for infiltrating type units. A couple of shoe mines out as well, so in the center part of the map, inside a very, very commonly held retreat path and aggression path on the western side of the map. What's more, I feel like the closer that the Germans keep getting here, the more suppressive fire they're able to put on out, and they're doing great work for it. Nope, it's a legit RD barrage. Oh god, poor guys. Gotta run, gotta run, gotta run, gotta run. That was a fairly fast artillery barrage, dear god. And because of that, they're going to be forced away. Meanwhile, the double Greyhound is going to start carving into one of these Volkswagen squads. He's got to get out now. But one of these Greyhounds is going to go down, possibly both. Of course, if he was able to put anything out, fantastic. But no, fascinating. Interestingly enough, actually, we're going to see that the Puma takes great amounts of damage. And he's got to back away before this last one gets him. But he takes out 2 M8 Greyhounds pretty quickly, and this other one's going to probably fall under his claws if they're not careful. Now, what's up here? There's another... Oh, the MG-34. Never mind. I thought something actually fascinating was there, but I guess not. I know these guys are going to start tickling each other with their cannon from long range, but I don't think the Puma's going to be able to take him on out, and especially with the support of this flak emplacement, yeah, it's not going to go well. Yep, one more round, and that's it. There goes all of VonIvan's actual material.
Light vehicle just got destroyed.
And he's right back to his 6th Infantry squad yet again. So Unknown Legend lost his double Kubelwagen and then went up to take 3 different vehicles away from the Americans. He's up 80 tickets right now, and easily could be up more than that, but he's not pushing for the center part of the map. A fair thing, all things considered. I'm expecting to see another SWS coming in rather soon. Instead, we're going to see a recon pass. Where's that pass going to go? Well, not anywhere too surprising, I suppose. Incendiary grenade? Nope. It's going to be a smoke grenade instead. So it's going to go freak him out and use the 30 smokes. Wait, why? Oh, harms infantry therapeutic exposure. That's interesting. That's something you don't really often see. It's always fun for me watching the higher tier players, Unknown Legend and VonIvan, just because it's such uncommon usage of material. Now he's calling in Fallschirmjägers as well to devastate these guys on retreat. Got a couple of kills already, some really great damage. And these riflemen coming in from the side are going to try to be aggressive, but it's not going to go very well either. It seems he did lose one of his squads of Fallschirmjägers, and I apologize, I didn't see that go down. But we have engagements all along the line. MG-34's in a fantastic position, only barely not able to touch that flank. And for some reason, we're not seeing any kind of aggression to pick up this VP. I guess he knows he's up an immense amount of tickets anyway. And VonIvan still refuses to go for either officer, which is very strange. It kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. In fact, it makes 0 sense to me. But maybe what he's doing is he's waiting for something like airdrop to combat group, and he's going to spend the entire thing with no officers. Which is a super, super strange way to go about it, but a fascinating study nonetheless. Puma behind, he can start lofting rounds downrange at those rear echelon troops, but the rear echelons are not going to be particularly worried about it. I mean, it's like using a cannon to kill a mosquito. And thank God that he takes somebody out as he was retreating. I would have felt like a boob. Anyway, SWS is out, which means we're probably going to see that Schwerpanzer headquarters going down right here, as it's fairly standard for OKW players on this map. We will see... Actually, there's another shoe mine going on down. The other shoe mine's gone off. Okay, so one went off. The other one's still there. The Puma, as well as a couple of squads of infantry and support, are up and running. But as we move forward further and further, having a battle group headquarters is starting to become more of a necessity here, at least in my estimation. Schumann is there to protect the left flank of the Sturm Pioneers, but the Sturm Pioneers are gamely hanging on in. Volksgrenadiers, in the meantime, are hanging on out and just throwing rounds at these riflemen outside. But even while that's there, I have to see, what's the range on this? Okay, so it's a defensively placed Fair Pencil headquarters. I'm not sure I necessarily agree with it 100%, but it's interesting. Let's call it interesting. Puma is still back in the area, and now that we see the power of the Puma, I have to say I'm surprised that it did as well as it did against 3 different Greyhounds, though it did have some help in terms of the Fausts. So well done there.
We're losing a capture point.
I and our Pathfinders are hiding on out, but you're going to get shredded in a second here. You see, these guys are out in negative cover, and they still took out 40%, 50% really, of that of the health there in just a few seconds. Now, where are those paratroopers coming on in? Back at base. Okay, so the way that this works, the paratroopers come out in, and they are each given random sets of equipment. So these guys get lovely amounts of Tommies. And these are Zooks, obviously, right here. So, interesting. And with the Tommies, by the way, they get tactical assault. So they get to, quote, attack more effectively, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean. Again, I've almost never seen recon support companies, so it's very surprising for me to even see this. But VonIvan is not using that particular ability. And also worth noting, I guess, in the meantime, that both squads do have access to Pineapple, which doesn't very much seem like a crazy idea, since VonIvan hasn't really gone for any sort of fruit on his own. 406 to 367, the Germans have sacrificed a good chunk of tickets, so that way they can just continue to drive their at least slight advantage further. Alright, in the meantime, where are we? So 16 minutes in, 17 minutes in, and Veterancy. Well, let's take a look at Veterancy. So Germans doing decently well, but remember the OKW goes up to 5 stars of Veterancy because they've been fighting for like 6 years at this point, big guy. America's doing decently well themselves. We had a couple of squads of riflemen, fairly beefy. But what's more interesting to me is that rear echelon squads have a good amount of veterancy, and you can tell that all that veterancy is starting to pay dividends, taking a huge amount of territory. Volks Grenadier is going to get outmatched and get forced back pretty darn quickly. Unless they like nuke their own position, they need to run right now.
Capture point is under attack.
And there we go. Probably still going to drop models on retreat. Yep, that's one. Not sure there's going to be another one. We'll see. Mines are still around, and I'm trying to think about who else is still in the area here. So Unknown Legend, he really should be bringing in that last truck. He kind of needs it.
Overrunning one of our capture points.
But we will see instead the I and R Pathfinders. I'm going to call them IRs, but it makes no sense. I and R Pathfinders are falling back. The Zooks are still out on the hunt, and now the Germans are finally down in terms of tickets, and they don't own any fuel. And the Americans will own double fuel in just a few seconds here. So that will be very, very negative, to say the least. It always seems strange to me that the rifle men don't actually get the smoke grenade until they get a grenade package. I would think that they give you the pineapples, perhaps, but not anything else. But oh well, fruit is fruit. Worth noting in the meantime, the Puma does have this ability over here. Aim shots are pretty darn fantastic. Unfortunately for him, there's nothing for him to fire at anymore since he just killed everything that was a vehicle, with the notable exception of the ambo. But why would you shoot it at an ambulance? Those guys are not combatants, damn it. And there are more Fallschirmjägers. Where are these guys coming on out? So, oh, okay, there's striding on in, doing their thing. MG-34 firing the wrong direction, basically. Really should be firing at these guys out in the open. Zero cover to be suppressed in half a second. And here comes some incendiary grenades. So, already cooking up one of those riflemen right now. And was that suppression somehow I just saw? No, these guys were like, oddly, something was really weird. I saw like a lightning bolt. Now the Americans continue to have these little pockets of fighting going on all across the main battle line. MG-34 is going to retreat back home. Good decision there. And these rear echelons are going to sacrifice their lives so that with the INRs and riflemen will cut them to shreds. But alright, and meanwhile down here to the side, oh no, my gosh, so apparently the MG-34 went down and being captured out by rear echelon squads, so nice and cheap there for VonIvan, at least to reinforce. Meanwhile, Unknown Legend has dropped a significant amount of material so far in this game.
is overrunning one of our capture points.
Though shockingly, has not done a whole lot for the infantry engagements that have happened up and down the line so far in this match. And a lot of that, I think, has to do with the way that Unknown Legend has been concentrating his forces. For the most part, it seems that whenever someone has a successful engagement, we're getting numerical advantage. Say, in case in point, these paratroop, quote, support squads are going to be able to just devastate these guys because they outnumber them 4-1. And as good as Fallschirmjägers are, that's a lot of Tommies and rifles being fired at them. But the Germans are taking back the VP advantage. They have one already. They're getting another couple of them, and very, very soon. As MG34 needs to relocate, I would say, but he's not going to do that until it's too late, I imagine. In the meantime, Fallschirmjägers are going to find themselves getting caught out and pinned or suppressed by the MG34 and taking immense amounts of damage. Otherwise, they have to retreat right now. Right now. Right. My gosh. Run. Thank you. And Unknown Legend just continues to just gather immense amounts of fuel, which I'm not sure I particularly understand. For that matter, I don't understand VonIvan's decision to gather tons of fuel either. It'd be kind of fun to see just numbers upon numbers of Greyhounds here, but I don't think it's going to happen. And another quick barrage coming in. That's a really quick barrage. And there's a P4 coming on out. Alright, that's an interesting call. I guess I can understand it more or less. I'm a little surprised. The Germans, in the meantime, have gotten a couple of tickets off from their American opponents, but that's not going to stop the Americans from charging back in and taking 2 more points by themselves. 1 and number 2 imminently. And before, as I was talking about, with the Americans taking a good section of this battlefield and really grouping their forces very aggressively, it was like Unknown Legend is starting to get kind of knocked around. He was saving so long to pick up that P4. Now he's going to find himself getting completely shredded.
Squad, get ready! We're getting plastered over here!
On the plus side, he is making sure he takes away the fuel from the Americans. And this P4 announcing himself is going to do decently well against these guys who don't have any sort of legitimate AT threat. Now, we do have to worry about things like that Zook and that M1 57mm, but the 57mm is dreadfully out of position. 312, 311 to 336. VonIvan is in the lead by a scant number of tickets, so that number continues to grow. While the rest of the Germans kind of come in a little bit at a time, and through endless engagements, happen to just hustle in, blow apart guys that have been fighting for a very long time, and they successfully retreat yet again. MG34 is going to be able to see the Fallschirmjägers the second they poke their head out, and maybe not even waiting for that long. But I believe this P4 is going to have something to say about it. And that'll be it. There goes the MG34 right back out home.
Captain just took the battlefield.
And finally, at 24 minutes, almost 23 and a half minutes, we're going to see a captain coming on out, which makes me wonder, will we see a very, very quick major then too? Yes, we are. So a quick major after the captain, but 25 minutes on the field with no officers. Not even a lieutenant. That's almost insane for me. I can barely wrap my head around that.
A capture point is under attack.
Rear echelons over here do go down courtesy of a double Fallschirmjäger hunt. And that was more of a vetted up squad as well. There's 3 stars that they had right there. So now there's 3 groups of Americans who have great amounts of veterancy. And it falls off a little bit more after that. One that has a decent amount, and then it falls off a lot more after that. Well, these Volks Grenadiers refuse to be counted by the fact that there seems to be the entire American army charging after them. 4 squads coming on out with the 57mm in support, and the captain right around here as well.
We're losing a capture point.
It is worth noting that these Fallschirmjägers aren't retreating, they're not running with their tails between their legs, but perhaps they should be. But for the moment, a bit of pineapple gets thrown at the Germans, and that's not going to be doing a whole lot. P4 in the meantime putting out good amounts of damage, and we'll see himself get his first star veterancy after he gets his 11th kill, beating up on these rear echelons like crazy. Ooh, and really doing great work against the riflemen. The riflemen are not going to make it out alive, I don't think. There goes another squad, so micro opportunity being missed by VonIvan. He's too busy fighting on the other side of the map, which is completely understandable, all things considered.
A capture point is being overrun.
Meanwhile, I continue to say I would love to see a battle group headquarters and then some medics, because the German infantry is just getting slaughtered consistently. And while he thinks it might be a good deal to pick up these medical supplies, it just doesn't seem to be great in the long term. You might as well just bring out the fuel and you know, skip the massive investment of munitions that you have to use. But the Major's on the field, which means that we're going to see a Jackson coming on out. I always go back and forth in this. It should be a Jackson, yes. Jackson coming on out for the Americans to face off against that P4 and the Puma. Now, if it gets the Puma by itself, the Puma's pretty much dead. That's there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. However, if the Germans are able to flank with one or the other, they might lose one of their vehicles, but it's not going to be a happy Jackson at the end of it. Now, the only problem with this is that the Germans don't quite get the opportunity to see the Jackson come out. In fact, I think it's going to be happening just as the recon plane leaves the battlefield, which is very, very unlucky.
Germans are making a push.
And the Germans are taking back both fuel points over here. The Americans are not going to be able to take this position over here to the east. Not easily, anyway. They'll have guys run on in, perhaps, but it won't be a great idea. Fallschirmjägers, in the meantime, throw out a bundle grenade, explode that poor relic of a truck that was hanging on out, and they're going to take the middle VP, even as the Americans take the western one away from the OKW. Fallschirmjägers, backed up by Volksgrenadiers, though, will keep these paratroopers at bay, and indeed, the paratroopers really want to back away. They don't want to be taking this engagement. This is a bad engagement, and they both actually retreat at the same time. It could have been a dead paratrooper squad. Lucky for the Americans, the Germans lost their nerve just before that happened. Now, Jackson gets caught out first by the Puma, and yeah, unsurprisingly, he's going to get hit pretty hard. However, one shot takes that Puma down almost about, what, 15-20% health? Fantastic, fantastic retort. Neither player's been losing a lot of material so far, and of course, as I said, I'm sure we're going to see some death and destruction happening here. But these Fallschirmjägers are trying very, very hard to stand up against this firepower. You know, over here on the western side, another squad of Fallschirmjägers will just tear these poor rear echelons to pieces. You gotta run soon, because these guys are very well vetted up. He doesn't want to lose those. He's gonna lose those. There they go. So VonIvan losing some opportunities here back and forth, and kind of negative. Folks are needing to back off. They do indeed. They have 4 stars of veterancy. Another squad has 4 stars as well. They're doing pretty well for themselves. 14 kills meanwhile the P4. The Jackson's got just a little bit of damage out for people. And this ambo might consider being a little bit further forward, maybe with the Major sitting in support. But the Major is doing what exercising his command prerogative. He is leading from the rear. Riflemen, in the meantime, will find themselves outflanked in negative cover, which means they're going to take extra damage. One more shot, probably take another model or two. No, not going to. Instead, they just soft retreat. And that's lucky right there, that is. INR Pathfinders, though, not quite as lucky. Jackson charging on in, but we do have the opportunity for the Germans to bring in a lot of Panzerfausts.
Just lost a unit.
Another rifleman going on down, so that's pretty darn bad there. And now this paratrooper squad, it looks like VonIvan is just getting thrown by all of this firepower going in every direction. Unknown Legend, in the meantime, though, he is definitely looking great. Except, mind you, except that he's under a trip cap right now, so that's embarrassing. Bang on even in terms of army size. Incendiary grenade going on out, and that Major does make it away before things get really, really bad. And I continue to say it, it would have been better had there been another headquarters on the field.
A capture point is being
Just saying. MG-34 is going to start pouring rounds over at this P4, but the P4, of course, will not care at all. These Fallschirmjägers coming up behind might care a little bit more. Oh, okay, smoke grenade. Alright. Some very strange usages of abilities here, but at least at the same time, the Germans are going and taking back a couple of portions of this map. Now, the captain will face off against these Volksgrenadiers very, very briefly, but the fully vetted up Volksgrenadiers will send that kind of minimalistically experienced captain running.
Enemy rifle plans!
Fallschirmjäger's going to do very well against these guys in negative cover. Lots of damage being done, and some pineapple being thrown on out. But again, kaboom, going to hurt those guys a hell of a lot more. They chase him away. Not taking him out, but chase him away. Both German vehicles, and finally we're going to see that last battle group headquarters coming on in, trying to tear apart these riflemen over here. We'll encourage one of them to leave, but the other one will continue to hang gamely. The Jackson comes on in and throws rounds downrange at the P4. Not going for that Puma right now. He knows what the bigger threat is. Germans will take the center, they'll take the right, and the Allies will take the left.
Enemy fire! Keep low!
And there we go. So finally seeing that last
300 points remaining.
Area secured.
last bad boy right here. I can't help but wonder what would be a better idea to throw him up here and then spend the 300 wreck, 300 manpower just to go and make that forward retreat point. Behind this, that'd be a good idea, but I can understand them being very reticent of that. I'm sorry, by the way, that was a dead INR Pathfinders before I realized now. But have this as a kind of deterrent for anybody who wants to get close to the German front lines. Question is, will this major go down by this largely unaimed fire? No, he's going to limp away with literally just a fraction of health. And these I and R Pathfinders are going to get carved up by the MP38s, I think. I'm pretty sure it's an MP38 being utilized. Not MP38s. I'm using the wrong one here. No, FG42s. Wow. Wow, you never appreciate what vetted up Fallschirmjäger can do until they do it. And take out that paratrooper support squad. Now the 57mm is accordingly backing on up, while this particular bad boy over here in this house, well, he's going to just do immense amounts of damage. And even with Zooks and all that kind of nonsense, it's not going to go well. They're in the open, so both guys are going to get suppressed in a second. I'm actually surprised the captain's not suppressed already. Interesting.
Our supply line just got cut off.
Fallschirmjägers have cut the Americans off on their right-hand supply, and with that, we'll take a very good lead in terms of resources. Really only surrendering just this one kind of munitions over here to the Americans. In the meantime, though, we will see both armored vehicles for the Germans redeploying over here, and might even be able to take out this captain on retreat. So VonIvan's been missing some micro plays throughout most of this game, which is a little bit unfortunate. He's been up in tickets. That's going to start to really close the gap, though. It's 184 to 246, draining at a trip cap rate. And these Fallschirmjägers are going to be forced on back, but it won't be a super quick exercise. I do kind of love these INR Pathfinders just kind of hanging on out over here. Though I would like to see them be a little bit more aggressive. Jackson's in the area, throwing rounds to the P4. P4 does back up, which is a little bit unsurprising at this stage in the game. And now, with the battle group headquarters on out, there is finally a savings of munitions that's going to happen here. What's more, we will see a Koenig's T got pretty much eventually. Jackson's going to back on up. He does have that HVAP round. Those things are insanely good against armored vehicles. He's popping it out right now, so for just a mere 30 munis, he's going to do a great amount of penetration. Might even probably take out the P4 one more hit. There's one, and Puma's not going to get another shot off now, is he? No, but we might see, we're going to see, oh, we can't even see the Germans coming in behind him. So Jackson's going to limp away, so congratulations there. But the Americans have dropped so much in the meantime, I don't know how easy it's going to be for them to kind of come back into this. But calling another Sherman might be a good start for that. And about time, too, considering how much how much fuel has been out on this map. The Germans, though, are holding both fuel points at this time, and will do a very good job and not having to worry about things like that. Where there's no pioneers whatsoever. Unknown Legend is missing an opportunity.
What the hell am I meant to do with these? We're at 200 points.
Nope, he's just waiting for that Koenig's T. Otherwise, he's floating an immense amount of resources for no reason. Major gets thrown back in disarray. Fallschirmjägers are there in the area to go and force them back. Not surprising, all things considered. Such strange
Tank
weapons.
support is here. Sherman ready.
But okay, let's think about this for a second. If there's a Koenigsegg as well as a Sherman and the Jackson, the two of them together might be enough to take out the Koenigsegg, but it has to be very, very lucky. An excellent engagement. So the Koenigsegg gets lines on either tank before they get a couple of shots off. It's not going to be pretty. Valiant Assault being popped over here for Unknown Legend, so he's going to just charge on in. These guys are probably going to take out this 57mm pretty darn quick. Yep. Carving him up. Pin, though. Oh, so not even managing to do a whole lot with that. Unlucky. In the meantime, Volk's Grenadiers probably will take out... Just barely missing. Okay, never mind. I take that back.
Capture point is under attack.
And there's the Koenigsegg. So now with that being used, are we going to start seeing things like their headquarters getting upgraded? Because, okay, well, medics are there. Well, medics aren't in yet, so that's the shock. They will be soon enough, I would imagine, though. And another barrage apparently been called on in by the Americans on the German positions. But the Germans react far too quickly for that to happen. Koenigsegg comes on out, though, and the Land Fortress himself is rumbling around looking for targets. .184 to 174. Gonna be an American hold, at least for the time being, until his Koenigsegg comes out and makes him wet his pants. Okay, well, completely misses. Never mind. MG-34 will probably get abused quite a bit by this Sherman, and these guys, yep, picking out their own retreat points. That way it's not easy for that tank to track them easily. Easy to track them easily. Wow. You can always tell it's been a long day, folks, when I can't really speak English anymore. It's my first language.
We're losing a capture point.
Yowza. But the Americans are closing that gap yet again, so about 5 tickets to go between the two, and Volksgrenadiers as well as Fallschirmjägers are moving on out to take as many positions as possible from the American war machine. Now, once again, we're going to see Fallschirmjägers coming up the center line, which is not the best idea when there's a freaking machine gun right there. And I don't rightly know who's actually going to win this one. I am hearing the Tiger pop his head out over here on the 57mm side, but armor-piercing discarded sable rounds. Yikes. You can hear the whip-like menace of those things. It's insane. So MG-34 gets taken on out, which means that the Germans could theoretically take it on back for themselves, but why would you really want to at the moment?
We lost a gun crew.
M1 goes down as well, so the Germans have themselves an effective deterrent against armor now, and the Americans are not going to be able to stand up to that too easily. Rear echelon's getting thrown back. So the Germans are getting more and more talents in terms of veterancy just off the cuff, and wow! Time to run. That's insane. And that's what a Sherman can do with HE ammo, so I take back almost everything I said.
Overrunning one of our capture points.
Now, Fallschirmjägers will find themselves completely outclassed by the Sherman, obviously, and getting flanked is not the best way for them to be either. And 151 to 174. We're still having disco warfare going on here, folks. And the Americans are very much down, when all is said and done, really, to the army composition, at least to me. And yes, he has the AT threats, but a Koenigsegg is a hell of a force multiplier.
Enemy infantry.
Even in the wake of these heat zooks.
Tank ready.
Backing up in the meantime. And where's that Puma? Puma's in the middle part of the map, trying to force back these riflemen. It's not going to work. Once again, candidate to kill mosquito kind of terminology going on here. A second Sherman being called in, and I wonder sometimes why VonIvan hasn't just called in 4 Shermans, 5 Shermans, and just like completely spammed out from there. As should be obviously seen, where are we looking here? So we have 12, so a good old 40 supply would have been particularly great. Bringing in Shermans as opposed to, Jacksons as opposed to Shermans, it does make sense, but I still would prefer to see a number of Shermans as opposed to the Jacksons. If for no other reason than to devastate my opponent's infantry force and make him completely and totally incapable of continuing any kind of warfare. More barrages being used, and one Fallschirmjäger squad goes down, which is a shame because those guys are expensive.
Tactical point being captured.
Koenigsegg taking out a couple of guys over here on the left-hand side. On the right, Germans taking back positions on both areas, so fuel as well as the VP itself. German pilots are probably going to go down here. Let's drop this down a little bit more in terms of declination. Never mind, I thought we were actually going to have a legitimate armor fight, but nope. Not going to be given that. It's teasing me and then pulling right back. Where is that Puma? Puma is getting repaired, I would hope, by these particular mechanics. I think that's true. And now, I believe the end is near for that Koenigsegg.
Armor here.
Pops this on 2 different Jacksons. That's fantastic. Switches over to armor piercing, and that'd be pretty darn good as well. Just have him jump in behind his opponent's Koenigsegg. Not much to worry about. And you can see it right now, even taking flank shots, even better. Even better. Now it's starting to bounce a little bit, so that's pretty darn bad. But the Koenigsegg is apparently not able to see his opposite number, and he's just taking rounds all day. And there's the Puma trying to stay fight, try to fight hard, but he's not going to do it. He stops short of the water, but he does throw his driver on in there, and that's some impressive water physics right there, isn't it? Unknown Legend, who had control of a significant portion of this game, no longer seems to be having that kind of control. Fortune Maker's going to find out these I and R Pathfinders. But they're not going to engage them, are they? There we go, finally engaging them.
Capture point is being overrun.
Taking 2 out. Do we see a third? Do I hear number 3? Do I hear number 3? No, I do not. That guy's going to get away, I believe. And HE ammo being levied at every garrison within sighting distance. And I don't know. I don't want to call it too early, but at the same time, I kind of feel like Unknown Legend, unless it takes a fantastic engagement, it's not going to be able to push this back. He has a half-strength Koenigsegg. He has no Puma anymore. The Puma's completely gone. The best he can hope for is annoying these guys to death, and it's not going to work well. Although I say that every single time I do say something like that, we see an excellent flank or something like that going out by the Germans, hammering into the sides of these riflemen, hammering into these charging forces from the Americans. Unfortunately, at this point, I don't think that is going to be enough left to handle anything overall. Americans picked their fuel back up, Germans rushing on in, everyone's running away from this particular major. Major was kind of funny. And that's going to be it. Unknown Legend does drop out at exactly 43 minutes. So well played, honestly, to both players. Just Unknown Legend, I think, started to tunnel a little bit too much on his desire to pull out the Koenigsegg. I would have picked up, I think, a battle group headquarters far sooner than he did. And I think all of that munitions investment could definitely be seen as contributing to his downfall. Regardless, end score 174-78. Winner by way of by way of surrender. I was gonna say knockout. It's gonna be VonIvan. But thank you folks for tuning in today. As always, this is Con Ulrich, and if you have a game, as always, email me at conulrichgaming@gmail.com. Any kind of thoughts, ideas, fan mail, let me know on there. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks everybody. You have a great day. Take it easy.